Welcome to our Ayurveda talk. Tonight, we're actually going to talk about inner child work. So it's not specifically Ayurveda, but it is. Here's the thing about anytime you are dealing with an imbalance, anytime you are dealing with an ailment, anything that is going on, it is affecting all the different layers of who you are. And so there is a physical component, there's a mental emotional component, and there's typically an energetic component. Now, there are cases where you got injured, you fell, you stubbed your toe. Okay, that's a physical thing. But oftentimes, even with those things, there might be an emotional component involved. And like, why did you stub your toe? Because you're not paying attention, because you're stressed out or something like that. But what I want to talk to you about is inner child work, because it's been coming up more and more and more. And a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they'll talk about it. And I actually got my hypnotherapy training 32 years ago. Tina was only 2 years old. And after I got that hypnotherapy training, I went through all of the work to do the inner child therapy. Now, at the time, I was only in my 20s, and I really didn't understand the value of it. I focused mostly on the clinical hypnotherapy part and used that. And, hypnotherapy is a somatic work. And nothing to be afraid of. You go into altered states anytime you lay your head down to go to sleep. You go into all the different brainwave states. It's natural. But inner child work is something to consider, because when you go in, it is a way for you to bring back parts of yourself that might have stopped growing. So here is an example I wanted to share. I decided I'm doing all this inner child work with people. They're coming in actually for Marma therapy, which is an Ayurvedic treatment. Marma therapy is so beautiful because it completely relaxes the body. It completely then, when the body is relaxed, now your body can receive. Your nervous system can be reset. It isn't a way for you to be able to unwind stuff that might have been stuck there for a long, long time. So a lot of times, patterns that are showing up in your life over and over and over again, you just reoccurring, like, why do I keep finding myself dealing with the same situation over and over? Well, that's because it's inside of you. And one of the things that I have been telling people is we're all a bunch of Sibyls. Now, if you don't know who Sybil is, I'm dating myself, because my generation, we all had to watch the movie Sybil. Sybil is a true story about a young gal, beautiful young gal, who was molested by her mother. And in order for her to cope and survive, parts of herself broke off, right? That's what happens. So we're all Sibyls, just not that extreme. Some of us maybe, but not that extreme. I was working with a lady the other day. I was doing Marma. I noticed that her breath wasn't working quite as well. I asked her to breathe. She had an emotion come up. Then we went into the emotion and had the body feel it, because in order for that to be able to be removed out of these different layers of who you are, you got to feel it. So see, we were having her feel it. She was feeling it. And then I was able to use the inner child work and ask, well, how old are you? And she said, I'm 3 or something, like I'm 4, 3 or 4. And I said, okay, well, what happened at 3 or 4? She said, I realized that I was the oldest in the family and that I had to be first. I had to make sure everything I did it first, because I was the oldest. I was the one that had to do everything before everybody else in the family, all the other kids. Well, that's not a big deal, that belief, but it is, because what it did was it set up this pattern for her in her life where she then had to control and manipulate situations at work, at home, with loved ones, that made it so she was first, because she had to fulfill that belief that she had to be first. So that belief that she took on as a very young child, totally subconscious, ended up completely controlling and manipulating her life. And so we went back and we helped integrate that part of herself. It's a process. But I want to then share something that happened to me. I decided, well, I'm going to start doing my own inner child work. So when I get triggered, if you get triggered, anything that's triggering you, that is a sign that you need to do some inner child work. You got to go inward. There's something there, because people are just doing their thing. So let's say, for example, you're having an issue with your partner. Your partner's just being your partner. They're just doing them. You can't change them, but if you're the one that's getting triggered, that's the work. You got to go in and deal with the trigger. So I noticed this one day, I had an issue that came up around being a victim. This is so funny. So, and this has been a theme throughout my life. And I truly was a victim. I almost died from sepsis. My ex-husband took me to court like 4 times. Like, I mean, just nasty, nasty stuff that I had to deal with. Really hard stuff. I was told I was stupid when I was in elementary school, but actually I had a hearing loss. I mean, just all the stupid stuff that happens in life. So there were times where I really was a victim. So I used muscle testing to find out what age did it start. So I'm going down through the numbers. I got below 20, I got below 15, below 10, 5. I keep going. I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm an infant in the crib. And that's when it started. In my mind, I had this visual of my older sister. She's the oldest. I'm the second oldest. My older sister came in and smacked me. And she was doing it on a regular basis. Now, it's not uncommon for the oldest child, because they were an only child. It was just them. And then all of a sudden, number 2 comes along. And it's not uncommon for number 1 to say, hey, get the heck out. These are my mommy and daddy. Who are you? And so my older sister was coming in and walloping me as a baby. And that's when that started. And so I did the work and I resolved it. And then I laughed my butt off, called up my sister and told her she was a total bully. It was awesome. So it just completely lightened things, but it made me see where I had this default pattern in my life where I kept finding myself in situations where I felt like a victim, and I'm like, no more. Do I want that? So I got triggered and I had to deal with it. So we have all these beautiful tools, and I'm using Ayurveda as well as some of the other tools that I have. But if you're not doing inner child work, it's something to consider to help you and support you. Anything that triggers you, it's a perfect thing to do. Go in, and it's a way of bringing that part of yourself that disconnected, just like Sybil. She had all these multiple personalities. We have all that stuff too, because that wound that never got healed, or that belief that created this total dysfunction, if you don't go in and find the source, it's just going to continue to act out. So I will oftentimes find people in certain parts of their life, they are trying to deal with an adult situation, but it's their 6-year-old trying to deal with that adult situation because of something that happened when they were 6, right? Emotional intelligence. If you don't have a lot of emotional intelligence going on, it might just be because you need to do some inner child work. Okay, so that's my talk about how to work with your inner child using so many different beautiful therapies that are out there. And eventually, you're able to make light of all of it. Because as you integrate all of these parts of yourself back in, you will heal those parts of yourself, and they become part of you, and they're able to be part of the adult you, not the child you. So you're no longer allowing that child to run your life. You're able to embrace that child and give that child what it needs within you, the love that it needs, the understanding that it needs, the attention, the actual feeling that it needs, so that it can then be resolved and healed. Okay, so if you're interested in doing some inner child work, come on down. I'm here for you.